So let me preface this one by saying that you're going to be seeing a lot of video in the background that isn't Fallout 4 or Skyrim, and yes, I know that. I don't have a ton of free time right now, I have a lot of stuff going on, whether it be lawyers or actually had a big test today, but either way, YouTube suppresses reusing of video game footage, so if I just included previous Fallout 4 footage, this video wouldn't be sent to as many sub boxes, hence I'm using fresh footage, but it's from games I just recreationally play from time to time and record. Either way, jumping to the regular video, Pete Hines gave an interview at PAX East that was this past weekend. If you don't know, Pete Hines is actually the Senior Vice President of Global Marketing and Communications at Bethesda Softworks. An important distinction should be made here. Bethesda Softworks is a publishing company that makes or publishes games like Doom, Wolfenstein, and of course the Bethesda Game Studios games. Bethesda Game Studios is actually a developer and the people behind Fallout and the Elder Scrolls, the one you're probably hoping to see a new game from. In this interview, Pete Hines actually discloses a good amount of information. The full interview is actually conducted by Game Reactor. I'm going to have a link to their article down below where they have a full video of the interview that is 12 minutes long. I'm only going to go over some of the interesting snippets of the things I found interesting and pertinent to this channel. He mentioned that they have some surprises in store. We're going to be talking about a healthy number of new games and new projects. Look, I'm really excited. We've been working on E3 for this year since September of last year. I'm already 7-8 months into working on E3, but I really like how it's coming along. I think there's going to be something in there for everyone, regardless of what you play or what kind of game you're into. And my biggest hope is always that we deliver on the promise of E3. So that's actually a pretty big statement. One of the big takeaways from that is, of course, in the beginning section where he does mention that we're going to be talking about a healthy number of new games and new projects. That is hopefully indicative that we're going to see some cool stuff at E3. And actually a separate interview or a separate article posted by a different company, they expand on this a little bit. He says, I couldn't give you guesses as to what we're going to announce and when those games will be out, but I will say we have a lot of new stuff to talk about at E3. Whether or not folks realize it, this is a hell on earth time for us with E3. We are in the midst of so much planning and work for all of that content, but I'm really excited. Then he kind of expands on it saying even further, I think we have a lot of stuff that folks are going to like. To my earlier content, it's going to be a mix of stuff that's all over the place. It's not going to be like all one kind of game or genre. It's going to be a lot of stuff in a lot of different areas, and hopefully there's something in there for everybody. So what I take that to mean personally at least is we're going to be getting a bunch of new games from Bethesda Softworks and hopefully a new game from Bethesda Game Studios. At 2017's E3, it was pretty disappointing. We got a lot of new stuff and a lot of cool FPS games, but I feel like there was just an overall kind of lacking feeling in that. And there definitely wasn't a wide variety of genres. Obviously we got Prey, we got Wolfenstein, we got The Evil Within 2, and those games are distinctively different, but they all kind of follow a pretty similar FPS theme. Based on these statements, actually going into this year's E3, what I would expect is that more or less we're probably going to get an FPS. We're probably going to get some other kind of maybe mobile game. There's been a bunch of rumors bouncing around, as well as some different job listings that have been posted in the past that I definitely think we're going to see something maybe akin to Fallout Shelter, since that's still a game Bethesda supports and actually pushes, which to me kind of signals that they must have made some decent amount of money off of that game, and if they made it off the first one, they're probably going to want to make something else in that genre. Todd Howard in a recent interview even mentioned how they want to be consistently working on a mobile game at Bethesda Game Studios going forward.
And I think we'll always have a mobile game in development, just like we do on the larger AAA console PC side.
But of course, the other big thing there is the Bethesda Game Studios AAA RPG. I can imagine he can make statements like this and not have that planned or not have that coming at this E3. When he says there's going to be something there for everybody, I imagine most of the people watching that are hoping from a new game from Bethesda Game Studios. They want a new Elder Scrolls, they want a new Fallout game, or of course, a game similar to that in a new IP, having some of the same genre themes, hopefully maybe being more RPG based than Fallout 4 was. And just as a quick aside, I want to make something clear. I don't think this means a new Fallout 5 or the Elder Scrolls 6 or even Starfield confirmed, more so just that I think it'd be pretty silly for Pete Hines to make these remarks and comments and there not being a new game coming at this E3 from Bethesda Game Studios. But it is his job to hype up the conference, and that very well could be the case that there is no new game coming this year and he is just making these remarks. It's also kind of important to know that Pete Hines is pretty good at hyping up things when they should be hyped up. Again, this is, kind of speculation and subjective, but based on my experience following Bethesda as I have over these past few years, Pete Hines didn't really pump up last year's E3 as much as he is this year. I feel like something big is definitely coming, and I think that big thing is this AAA game from Bethesda Game Studios. Yeah, that's totally my own opinion, that's totally speculation, take it with a grain of salt, but I guess I'm somewhat informed on this topic, and that is my opinion. There's obviously a ton of rumblings about this new game being a Starfield coming from Bethesda Game Studios, that being a space-based RPG. I don't personally buy into that. I definitely think there is going to be something new. I don't think it's going to be that game in particular, but maybe I'll be proven wrong, and that's okay. I'll be happy either way. Either way, I again really feel like this indicates that something new is coming, and that you should be getting hyped for this E3. I know a lot of people try and keep the hype down, but when Pete Hines is making comments like this, it's really hard to do that. And just another aside, Bethesda has continued to announce a ton of new things leading up to E3. Morrowind on the Xbox One and the Xbox One X enhanced version actually just got announced, which is fairly minor, but again, something else they won't be announcing at E3 because it got announced now. That's pretty much gonna wrap it up for this video, but for our psychology fun fact of the day, this one's not really a fun fact, but it's just something I feel like I've gotten out of my education. Nothing explicit, nothing that was like, hey, read this in a textbook and I learned it from that. But just in general, I feel like when I went into college, I was way more arrogant and way more closed-minded. I still may be kind of arrogant, but I feel like I've definitely had my mind opened up a little bit more, and actually, I think a large part of this is due to my education in psychology and just more of an understanding of bias. I'm not super well versed in this or anything like that, but I just feel like after having class after class of learning about bias and how to look for it and how to be careful about it, it actually made my own opinions change slightly because I realized I was pretty biased. I wasn't looking at both sides. I was just kind of listening to what I wanted to hear. And just overall, being conscious of that, I think, is really important. There's crazy stuff going on with politics. This identity politics thing is kind of disheartening because it really does seem like one side versus the other, not people being objective and trying to find the right thing. Something I always kind of repeat to myself when I'm reading something that I either don't agree with or really agree with is the truth is probably somewhere more in the middle. People are biased and people aren't going to normally give you the whole truth, so hearing one side of a story isn't probably the whole story. Take for example the video I posted a few days ago about my experience with the Gamer channel. You probably should have watched that anticipating that I'm going to be pretty biased. I tried to be as objective as I possibly could, but invariably you're going to hear a different story if you heard their side. Now, I'm not here saying that I in that video was biased or had alternate motives, just that keeping that in mind when watching videos like that I think is important. Now fortunately I was conscious of this and again tried to be super objective in that video, keep it very factual, but either way I just feel like it's something I've gotten out of learning about psychology that I wanted to share in this video. As always, again, I thank you guys for watching. I do hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.